Food bloggers, hi, how are you today? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Eat Blog Talk podcast. This is the place for food bloggers to get information and inspiration to accelerate your blog's growth and ultimately help you to achieve your freedom, whether that's financial, personal, or professional. I'm Megan Porta. I have been a food blogger for 13 years, so I understand how isolating food blogging can be. I'm on a mission to motivate, inspire, and most importantly, let each and every food blogger, including you, know that you are heard and supported. I absolutely ate this interview up. It was so good and right up my alley, and I feel like it is so relevant to what we need as food bloggers and entrepreneurs right now. Melissa Mitri joined me. She is from melissamitri.com. She is a dietitian, but she's also a writer and a blogger. So she gets all aspects of all of those things. So she knows how important diet is, how important exercise is, how important sleep and stress management are in order to be successful at what we do. She talks through each of those points in detail and tells us what foods we should be eating for more focus and more energy and all those good things that we want in our day. She talks about exercise and how to get started with that and how important it is. Also, she has some great tips about how to get better sleep and how to manage stress on a daily basis so that we can stay focused and get all the stuff done that we want to get done. Enjoy this episode. It really is so good, and I hope you listen to the very end. It is episode number 560, and it is sponsored by RankIQ. Food bloggers, have you experienced traffic loss after the recent Google updates? Are you feeling confused about how to move forward? I get it. I have been a food blogger for nearly 14 years, and I've been through the ringer with industry changes and business changes. You name it, I have been there. When I look back over my tough times, the thing that pulled me out of slumps and traffic loss and disappointment was always people. We need each other right now more than ever. You are in this food blogging game for the long haul. I know you are. And that means you need to find people to collaborate with, to connect with, and to learn from. Eat Blog Talk has two great options for you coming up: the 2025 Eat Blog Talk Mastermind groups and in-person retreats. We are now taking applications for the 2025 Mastermind groups. This year, we're splitting the groups in two. It'll be intermediate and advanced and beginner. We also lower the price to accommodate traffic and revenue dips a lot of us are experiencing. Apply now, as the first 4 people let into the group will receive 20% off the whole year. Go to eatblogtalk.com/mastermind to apply today. And there are still a few spots remaining for the 2024 fall retreat, which is also discounted this year due to revenue loss for so many. Join us in October in Minnesota. It is my favorite time of year here in Minnesota for 3 incredible days filled with laughter, great food, tons of learning and connecting, and honestly, they're just so much fun. You will not regret attending this retreat. Head over to eatblogtalk.com/retreat to apply for that today. I hope to see you in one or both of those spots. I can't wait for the next 12 months and to see all of your businesses explode. And trust me, having those people in your corner is going to help. Melissa Mitri is a registered dietitian and nutritionist. She's a weight loss specialist and expert health writer with over 15 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. She is also a blogger and freelance writer for health professionals and brands. Melissa blogs regularly at melissamitri.com, where she shares helpful content, tips, and recipes for those looking to lose weight in a sustainable way. Hello there, Melissa. Welcome to the podcast. How is your day going?
It's going great, Megan. Thank you. How is yours?
Good. Mine is too. Having a good start to my day. Some fun conversations going on today.
Great.
So today we're going to talk about diet and lifestyle hacks to improve your focus, which I love. I think we all need to hear this message right now. But before we get into that, do you have a fun fact to share with us, Melissa?
Yeah, sure. So my fun fact is I have run 4 half marathons.
Ooh.
So I know not everyone would consider that fun necessarily, but to me, it's It really is, because it's something I'm proud of and definitely a big feat to overcome. I've been a runner for several years, but I just more recently, over the past couple of years, got more into long distance running. And it's never really something I imagined doing, but I actually really have grown to love it more than I thought I would. And I think that it really has helped make me a stronger person mentally and physically. And it's just such a great stress relief, and really helps me keep consistent with my workouts to have sort of a challenge to always work towards. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And this definitely plays into our topic today, because we're going to talk about not necessarily running, like maybe that inspires some people, but other ways to move your body and just stay focused, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So love learning that about you. So would you mind just telling us a little bit about your business? Because I think it's a really interesting business.
Yeah, sure. So I am a registered dietitian. So I've been a dietitian for a little over 18 years, and I have two sort of main parts to my business. So I have the private practice and client side, where I work with clients. I specialize in weight loss, sustainable weight loss specifically, and working with mainly women who want to lose weight in a more sustainable, healthier way over the long term. So I have that side of my business. And I also am a writer and blogger. I'm a freelance writer for various publications. I also write for health and wellness professionals about various nutrition topics, just depending on the brand. And then I also have my own blog on my website, melissamitri.com, where I blog regularly about nutrition and exercise topics related to my niche, the sustainable weight loss topics, where I share a lot of tips, education, meal ideas that teach people how to eat in a way that supports weight loss, but is also satisfying and sustainable, which is really huge when it comes to making healthy eating more of a lifestyle and not a restrictive diet that I think that a lot of people, struggle to maintain.
Yeah, you've said the word sustainable a few times, and that's, I think, the key, because when we think of diet, it's like you start and you finish, and then what? So you're focusing on, no, this is a lifestyle change. You need to sustain whatever change you're making.
Exactly. A sustainable approach is always, I like to think of it as, it doesn't have an end date. There's not a start and end date. And that's how you know if that is a way of eating. I like to say a way of eating rather than a diet that's going to work for you long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love how you've kind of married your two passions together. So you're a dietitian and you focus on that sustainable weight loss, but also you're a writer and a blogger.
Mm-hmm.
So you know the need to focus and to find ways to increase our creativity and our productivity and the things that are going to sustain us. There's that word again.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. Like, what tips do you have for just improving our focus as entrepreneurs?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's so important, as you know, Megan, as a fellow blogger, and all of your listeners know that it can be difficult to maintain focus, and blogging requires a lot of deep focus and mental energy. And so there's a lot of things that you can do with both diet and lifestyle strategies that are really simple, that can really make your productivity so much better and make your day just feel easier. So I have a lot of tips to share today, but I'm really just going to simply kind of break it down between four main components. So your diet, your exercise, your sleep, and managing your stress. And I know that you have these episodes that you like to focus on to yourself, Megan, with mindset and lifestyle strategies, and I've really been loving that too. So I think that a lot of this will kind of tie nicely into that theme of how your lifestyle really can help you to work so much smarter.
Oh, yes. I'm glad you like those. They've not only helped, I think, my listeners, but they've helped me kind of just refocus, like, okay, I'm talking about this. I should probably focus on this more. So it's all around been really good. Okay. So do you want to move through those 4 points and maybe just talk a little bit about each?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we could start with diet.
Okay.
So diet is such a big component. So both what you eat and also how you eat. So I'll explain a little bit more in terms of what that means, but kind of just starting with what types of foods specifically can help you to improve focus, because there are a lot of foods that in research have really been shown to help you to have better focus, have better memory, and get your work done faster, which I think we can all appreciate. So I'm going to break it down to kind of like the top 10 foods and how they can help you. So hopefully these are foods that, if you're listening, that there are some foods in here that I'll mention that you really enjoy and that you can kind of add to your list to keep on hand. So some of the best foods, really a lot of certain fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. So specifically, blueberries is one of the first ones. So blueberries have a lot of antioxidants. They help our brain cells to just communicate better. So blueberries are a really great fruit to incorporate. You can add them to a smoothie in the morning. You can have them as a snack. I really like adding them to my overnight oats. So that's the way that I like to have it, because I find it blends really well with them. But there's so many ways you can have them. So definitely incorporating blueberries, just a handful a day even, can really help you focus. And then another really helpful one is broccoli. So broccoli is really high in vitamin K, which is a vitamin that helps our brain cells, again, talk to each other more easily, kind of just helps us to get from point A to point B with our work tasks and can really help you focus better. So adding that to, again, you could even mix that into a smoothie, frozen broccoli. You can add it to as a side with one of your meals. So lots of ways you can enjoy it, or even to your omelet in the morning if you're having breakfast. There's a lot of easy ways to kind of sneak it in.
There's nothing better, in my opinion, than roasted broccoli. It's like candy. It's so good.
Yes, I agree. That's my favorite way to eat broccoli. I prefer that over raw broccoli. But definitely having it in any way that you prefer it, because then you're going to eat it more often.
Right. Yeah.
So,
what other foods? Anything else?
Yeah. So, and then also fatty fish. So any type of fish like salmon, tuna, or sardines specifically are really helpful. They're rich in the healthy fats, the omega-3 fats that a lot of people take in supplement form, but you can also get them in those fish if you do enjoy eating those. So they, again, they help with our brain and nerve cell communication. They're really helpful for learning and memory. And then also seeds and nuts. So pumpkin seeds, any type of nuts really. So if you have a handful of mixed nuts, or especially walnuts, have been seen to have a little bit of a slight edge compared to other nuts in terms of focus, because they have a lot of those healthy fats that are found in those fatty fish as well.
Yeah. Yum. I love all those foods.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else, or is that kind of the bulk of your main suggestions?
Those are the bulk, but there's a few additional. Yeah, eggs. So eggs are another big one, dark chocolate, and then lastly, green tea. So eggs have a lot of healthful nutrients, like B vitamins, folic acid, and it also has a certain nutrient called choline, which a lot of people aren't really familiar with, but it's really linked to better memory and mental function. And choline's really hard to find in other foods, and eggs are one of the best sources of it. So again, like having eggs for breakfast, in any way, shape, or form that you enjoy them is going to be really helpful for your focus. And then dark chocolate. So dark chocolate has antioxidants that can help enhance memory. So the important thing to keep in mind with dark chocolate, or any chocolate, of course, is not to overdo it just because it has a lot of sugar. But the dark chocolate does have less sugar. So just a small square or two is enough to provide that, those brain health, mental focus benefits without kind of overdoing it on the sugar.
Yeah. So if people are listening and they're like, I don't eat any of these foods, do you have ways, or like easy ways, to slowly incorporate them into our diets? Yeah,
I would say with just starting with one or two of them, so it doesn't feel overwhelming, because they all offer those benefits. So I think that if it's not foods that you normally like to eat on their own, then kind of sneaking them in any way into a food that you do normally eat. So like, for example, the blueberries, or maybe the nuts even, you could blend those into a smoothie. You can add that and mix it into a yogurt. So you're not having it on its own necessarily, and it's just an easier way to kind of sneak it in with something else that you already enjoy.
Okay. And if we start doing this, Melissa, are we going to see better focus? What are we going to start seeing if we do this consistently?
Yes. So the consistency, I'm glad you mentioned, is really the most important piece. So if you say start adding blueberries to your diet tomorrow, it may not necessarily have an immediate
Yeah.
effect. That would be wonderful, right? But that's not necessarily the case, although they're still getting a lot of benefits from eating them otherwise. But yes, you want to try to be consistent with having a little bit every day. You can mix it up if you get bored. So, for example, you don't have to eat blueberries every single day. You can mix it up with the different types of foods. And, what you can expect, usually after maybe 3 to 5 days of consistently doing it, maybe a week, of just having more longer lasting energy. So it's not necessarily going to give you the caffeine boost, unless you're drinking green tea, of course, which is on the list. So not an immediate boost, but more of a long lasting mental focus and energy, which is really more helpful in terms of looking at
Yeah.
your overall day, right? Like you're not having too much caffeine that's giving you that immediate energy, but then it may result in a crash in another hour or two. So just looking for better focus, more longer lasting focus versus say after 20 or 30 minutes, feeling like your mind is starting to wander. And then, you start looking at your phone or you start doing other things that really pull that focus away and end up, taking a lot longer to do that task.
Yeah, the long-lasting mental focus is so appealing to me because it's like after a cup of coffee, you can get that burst of energy and
Right.
then it's like, "Oh gosh, I need something else." So that sounds so good to me to have that long-lasting focus and energy.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so great. We've talked about some foods to incorporate into our diet and just doing that consistently. Anything else on diet before we move on to exercise?
Yeah, sure. So I want to share a few tips just in terms of how not just how to incorporate these foods, but more how to eat and how to kind of plan ahead so that you can really implement, some of these strategies to help you to focus. So I have kind of just a few key tips on on how to focus and plan your day appropriately in terms of diet. So the first tip I have is really planning ahead, and this is so important for really any of these habits that I'll be sharing, but especially with diet, I know a lot of people do like to meal plan and know that that's really helpful for them, but the challenge is consistently doing it. But the planning ahead is really key so that you don't end up skipping meals, figuring out things on the fly when you're really hungry, or just, you're kind of just rushing trying to get back into your blogging work. So the planning ahead, which, really easy way to do that is just by getting a day ahead. I think a lot of times we think of meal planning as being this really involved thing that we have to plan ahead where we're eating for a week at a time. But it can really be really simple and small. And just, every night when you're finishing up dinner and cleaning up, just thinking about what's happening the next day and making sure that you have what you're eating for your meals and your snacks planned out so that every time you're kind of closing the day, you're planning out the next day, even if it's just for 5 minutes mentally in your own mind, so that you're not figuring things out at the last minute. It'll result in less, less breaks that you have to take. And also it'll just help you to eat better because you're planning ahead at a time when you're not starving or you're not feeling stressed. And so you're going to make better choices that'll give you that mental focus.
Such a simple recommendation, but I feel like that advice can take you so far. I mean, like one day ahead is all you need to do. You're right. We get so caught up in like meal planning. That concept feels overwhelming. Like we have to have a whole month planned or a whole week planned, but that is not necessarily true.
Right, exactly. And I think that, everybody's a little bit different. I mean, and depending on your schedule, some people like prefer to get farther ahead, and that's totally fine. I think that if you know what you're having ahead of time, it's helpful, but you don't have to plan it all ahead of time. You don't have to cook it all ahead of time. It's really whatever works for you. And if you're finding that, for anyone listening, that you're not consistent right now with meal planning, I think it's really helpful to just start small in that way and kind of build it from there.
Yeah, great advice. Love that so much. Anything else with diet, Melissa?
Yeah. So just in terms of the how of eating, it's really helpful to, so not just focusing on what to eat, but also slowing down your rate of eating is really important to consider and to try to do whenever possible. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of us tend to eat really quickly. So if you're just taking a really short work break and you didn't plan ahead in that way, then you may tend to eat your meals or your snacks very fast or potentially while you're working. And oftentimes that leads you to be distracted or ends up or overeating, which then leads to you feeling uncomfortable. So again, all of these things that may occur because you're eating too quickly or distracted may lead you to be less focused with your blogging work because you're not feeling your best. So trying to set aside scheduled time to have your meal, if possible, is really ideal. So even if it's just starting with 10 minutes, if you're currently right now eating at your desk, that would be still a huge improvement, just setting aside that 10 minutes to step away, eat your meal in the kitchen, in a seat, not standing, so that you're more focused on what you're eating and you realize when you're getting full. And that can be that alone can be really huge in helping you to feel better and kind of more in tune of how much you need to actually eat to feel your best.
And just enjoying food, right? Like sometimes I'm eating on the go or I'm eating while I'm on my way to my desk. And I don't even realize I'm eating. I get done with whatever's in my hand and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even taste that. What did I just eat?
Exactly.
Right? So you want to be able to sit and give it attention and enjoy it too.
Exactly. That is so important. I'm glad you mentioned that. And you really want to enjoy your food. That makes you feel so much more satisfied. This is something I talk to with my clients all the time, because if you are rushed and distracted, you really sometimes can't even remember what you ate or how much.
Yeah.
And then it just leads you to kind of be out of tune with your body the rest of the day. So
For sure.
yeah. So that can be hugely helpful.
It's unsettling when you're like, wait a second, this is calories that I just put in my body. I want to enjoy it. I eat this food because I like it. So it's almost like, oh gosh, where did that go? That enjoyment is gone.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
it's really important. And it's not easier said than it's not easy to slow down. I
Totally.
know that from experience that it can definitely take practice, but that's why I say just, start with 10 minutes if that feels more feasible, because that's still maybe an improvement for many of us, and just kind of working up from there.
Yeah. Any other tips relating to diet?
Yeah. So the last two are more related to beverages rather than food. But my third tip would be to stay hydrated. So dehydration can really hinder our productivity, making it harder to focus and can make you feel sluggish. And so especially if you're someone that drinks coffee in the morning or likes to drink it slowly, that can easily start to replace your water intake. And that can definitely affect your ability to focus and make you feel more tired, especially as the day goes on. So really an easy way to start drinking more water if you're not currently doing this is, one, just keep water by your side at all times. So keep it, right there front and center by your desk. Or if you're depending on what you're doing, if you're taking food photos, keep it in the kitchen so you see it. You could take sips while you're doing your work. And then also just keep water by your bed. And I think this is really helpful so that when you wake up in the morning, it's the first thing that you do is you drink some water right when you wake up. And it kind of just starts that domino effect of drinking more water throughout the day versus waking up and immediately having coffee, for example. And that tends to then become the habit.
Yeah, that's so true. Water can be a game changer throughout the day if you think about it. Sometimes I'm like, why do I feel so crappy right now? And then I realize I haven't had a sip of water. So then I'll go and chug water and feel so much better. But it's amazing what that just little act can do.
Exactly. It's huge. It's so simple, but again, it's simple, but not necessarily always easy. So I think having that water first thing, and then also, not everybody likes plain water. So, if that's you and you don't enjoy plain water, then you can add lemon, lime, or any favorite herbs or fruit flavors if that helps to entice you to drink more. And also keeping in mind that about 20% of our daily water intake can actually come from food as well. So eating a lot of water-rich foods such as cucumbers, celery, watermelon, those can also keep you hydrated. So that also counts too.
All right. Did you have one last beverage tip or something else for diet?
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to mention, and it's not necessarily for during your workday, but it can affect it, is alcohol. And so I wanted to mention alcohol, just limiting as much as possible as it can affect your sleep and energy the next day. Alcohol really tends to drain, even if it's just a small glass of wine with dinner, and everybody has their own, of course, habits when it comes to this. So it's very individualized. But in general, for all of us, alcohol really tends to drain our mental and physical energy. So it can leave you feeling depleted the next day, dehydrates you, and then you may feel less motivated the next day to do the work that you need to do. So what I like to recommend is just, not making it harder than it has to be. Save, if possible, save it for special occasions if you do have it, so that it's not affecting your workday and your productivity.
Yes, more great advice. All right, anything else for diet?
I think those are all the main points that I wanted to mention.
Hello, food bloggers. Let's take a quick break to chat SEO and keyword research tools. We are now into the summer of 2024, and things are a bit tumultuous in the land of Google search and SEO. Am I right? Because of this, I have heard rumblings about people not using keyword research tools anymore. I think if you're doing this as a way to step back from the pressure, it's awesome. But if you're doing it because you don't think they work anymore or that SEO is dead, let me try to convince you to keep using my favorite tool, RankIQ. If there is any keyword research tool to use right now, I think it's RankIQ. Food bloggers are finding now more than ever that we need to write based on keywords we can rank for, and RankIQ is your tool for finding those low competition, high search volume keywords that will help you rank. People are still doing Google searches for recipes, and Google is still serving up food blogs in recipe searches. Don't forget this. Q3 and Q4 are right around the corner, so stay on top of that low competition content that you can create and get ranked for. Head to rankiq.com today to get started. Now back to the episode. Okay, let's move on to exercise. What do you have about that?
Yeah, so exercise is another huge component. And then in terms of exercise, I want to start by saying that everyone is at a different fitness level. So depending on where you are in terms of your own fitness level, it can be very individualized. Getting in any type of movement is better than none. So if you're not getting in any exercise or movement throughout the day, then it affects your ability to focus and productivity. Moving more stimulates blood flow to your brain and improves focus, and it helps you just get things done faster. So, I want to preface by saying, I think a lot of us may feel like we don't have the time to do it. Especially, I know that if a lot of those listening, if they're parents or kind of have condensed work days, then you may sometimes feel like, oh, I don't have the time to exercise or take this away from my work day. But I promise that taking the time to do it will actually save you time. So if you take even 10 to 15 minutes as a starting point to get in some movement, your productivity will be enhanced significantly. So just giving it a try if you're not currently doing that.
Yeah, I always say you don't have the time not to exercise. It is going to add so much to your life, not just the focus, but creativity, productivity, energy. I mean, it gives you so much back when you just invest a little bit of time. And like you said, it doesn't have to be hours, right? You can start with 15 minutes of something, just getting your body moving.
Exactly. So yeah, as a few examples, just going for a 10-minute walk or doing a 10-minute strength training session, depending on your preference or maybe what your body is feeling that day. There's no hard, fast rules or right or wrong. It's getting in a type of movement that feels good for you or that you feel like you need that day. And if you had a plan to do something and you changed it because maybe you're not feeling like doing strength training, that's okay too, because the most important thing is that you're consistently doing something every day. That's what's also, just like the diet, going to give you the biggest benefits to your focus and productivity by doing it on a regular basis.
Yeah, so true. And then do you recommend, I mean, probably, but like every day, right? Like doing something to move your body every single day.
Yes, I would suggest that. And again, it could be depending on what you're currently doing, starting small. So I think 10 minutes is a really good starting point that doesn't feel daunting, and then you could work your way up from there. So if, starting with, I like to recommend as early as possible, not meaning you don't have to get up necessarily at 5 a.m. to go for a walk, but starting earlier in the day if you can. So even if you're, for example, breaking up your movement breaks into, 2 or 3 times a day, and starting with that first, 5 to 10 minute walk earlier in the morning, maybe right before you start your work day at 8 or 9 a.m., And because it's kind of sets the tone for being more active throughout the day. The longer that you wait, the harder it feels. Again, even if it's just 10 minutes, it's probably going to feel a little bit more daunting the longer you've been sitting and the longer you're waiting to do it. So yeah, so doing, starting with 10 minutes every day and then building from there, because when you do have those days where you're not doing it, then it just feels a little bit harder to start again when you go back to it. So doing a little bit every day is going to be more beneficial for your focus versus doing more on less days.
Yeah. So the consistency again.
Mm-hmm.
I just recorded a mindset episode about this, actually, just different ways to get your body moving because it is so important. And one of the things I do, like today, I'm doing a bunch of podcast interviews. So I'm sitting at my desk all day and it doesn't feel good to sit all day long. So I make sure to start my day with workout and a walk. And then also throughout the day, like if I have breaks in between interviews, just like little bursts of exercise gets me going. It gets me pumped up and like just re-energizes my body and my mind. And I think we discount that just like 3-minute burst of jumping jacks or whatever. Like it doesn't even have to be that much, but just something to get kind of re-energized.
Exactly. I think it's just that constant reminder to yourself that this helps you. This gives you time back. This gives you energy back, because the default, also, even if you're start doing it every day, the default is always, your mind is saying, I don't have the time to do this, or no, I need to keep doing what I'm doing because I'm going to run out of time. But it's just having that, again, that's why the more you do it, the more regularly you do it, the easier it'll become, because it's fresh in your mind and okay, I did this yesterday, I did this the day before, and I know that it works for me. Like, for example, I did a 5-minute treadmill walk before this podcast recording, and I still had that in my mind to say, I don't have the time to do this, but I did it. And then I was glad I did it. And so even like you said, those 3-minute bursts, anything you could do throughout the day when you're, switching tasks, I think that's a good time to get a little movement break and do something, because it might just serve as a good reminder to do it.
So true. One of the things that motivates me with this is remembering how I feel on those days when I don't exercise and I get into my day, I sit down, I'm like, this feels awful. I don't like how I feel right now. I don't feel motivated. My focus is diminished. It just doesn't feel good. So on the days when I wake up and think I don't want to go for a walk or whatever, like, okay, how are you going to feel if you sit down at your desk without doing this? And every time I'm like, okay, yeah, I have to go do it.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes that's a bigger motivator that how you don't want to feel a certain way, because it feels crummy and you don't feel your best. It's almost distracting to your work. So
it is distracting hugely for me, very much so.
Yes. So no, that's great. So yeah.
Anything else on exercise, Melissa?
Yeah, I think like we had said, like just, in terms of finding time, I think just starting small, and, really that good time, if you're not sure when to fit it in, is just when you're switching tasks. Like if you're going from, say, photographing food to creating an outline, or before publishing a post. I really like to do a movement break before starting to write, because that's that deep work that, really helps to get in some of that blood flowing and the creative juices going before starting that task. So just going from task to task might be a good opportunity, reminder to do it. And then in terms of anything else, I think just, if possible, even trying to get like a standing desk or a treadmill desk, if that's something that works for you, just to get in more movement, or even just reduce stiffness while you're working. So aside from, the daily movement breaks where you're setting dedicated time, I use a standing desk because I like to kind of alternate between standing and sitting. And whenever I find myself losing focus, that's when I put it onto the standing and I kind of like stretch my legs. But I know a lot of people love the treadmill desks too. I think everybody's a little bit different with that in terms of if that works for you to do that while you're working. But I know a lot of people that really like that as well. So that's another way to get in steps while you're working as well.
Yes, that's on my list. I want a standing desk. That's next.
Yes. Yeah, definitely helpful. Yeah. So I'm able to, I feel like work longer, maintain my focus longer with doing that as well, just because you're kind of alternating.
Yeah, I can totally see that. All right. Are you ready to move on to sleep or anything else with exercise?
Yeah, I think my final thing I would say in terms of exercise is just like diet, planning your meals, is planning out, your your exercise as well. So I like to just couple it together again to make it simple. So if you're planning out that, your meals the next day in your head at the end of the day, then that's when you can even just write down what your plan is for your exercise. Even I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk, put it on your calendar to make sure that it actually happens and it's a priority. So I think that's a really important thing to know and just to plan it and make it as easy as possible so that when you open up your calendar the next day, you already know what's happening. You can leave your clothes, your sneakers, anything you need for that movement break right there in front of you so that it just leaves less room, less barriers, anything that's going to get in your way.
Yes, love that so much. Like just setting yourself up for that success, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So diet and exercise, I think if you kind of nail those and you're consistent with that, you naturally get better sleep, right? Do you have other thoughts on how we can rest better?
Yeah, so definitely, as you said, the exercise really, and especially exercise outside, can definitely help with sleep, and then the diet as well. If you're having balanced meals, that's going to help with your sleep quality. But in terms of anything else, the biggest thing I would say is trying. Well, the two biggest things I would say is one, trying to stay on a schedule as much as possible. So trying to go to bed and wake up around the same time. I know this is may not always be entirely possible, but as close as you can. So if you can try to go to bed and wake up within an hour of the usual of a certain time so that you have sort of more of a routine and your body will wake up more easily, you'll feel more energetic, and then you'll also fall asleep more easily because your body's used to going to bed around that same time. So that's what I would say as a starting point in terms of getting better sleep. And then secondly, trying to have a better nighttime routine and set stricter boundaries, which I know I see with my clients, and I've struggled with this myself. It's not easy setting those boundaries, but it's really important. So when I say setting stricter boundaries at night, that can mean turning off the screen sooner, not watching as much Netflix. It could be maybe watching one or two shows versus three or four, and just having like a cutoff time at night that is telling you about a half hour before you're getting ready to go to sleep. This is the time that I need to get off social media. This is the time I need to put my phone away and shut the TV off and then do something that kind of primes you for bed. So, reading a book, journaling, taking a bath, anything that is relaxing to your mind that doesn't involve a screen is really helpful.
And then what are your thoughts about food before bed? I know there are different thoughts on this, but do we eat before bed? Do we not?
Yes, that's a great question. So it really depends on the situation. So it's definitely not bad to eat before bed. I think a lot of people have the misconception that we have to stop eating by a certain time, and that's definitely not true. So for one, if you're feeling physically hungry, maybe you didn't have enough for dinner, or maybe you're staying up a little bit later than usual, and so you're hungry again, you should have something. So, but you don't want to have something too big or heavy. So more of a snack versus an actual meal if you feel like you are actually physically hungry. So a few good things you can have are anything that's dairy or magnesium. So those two things, so meaning like a Greek yogurt with a handful of nuts. Dairy can help with sleep. And then also magnesium is in nuts and seeds, which a lot of people take magnesium supplements to help for sleep, and it's actually pretty effective. So getting that in food form, if you are physically hungry, can help with that. So having a little snack is totally fine.
What are your thoughts on melatonin?
Yeah. So melatonin, I would say there is not enough research on the long-term use of melatonin. So what I've seen and read about is that maybe for 3 to 4 months. And then after that, there's just not that much strong research on the overall safety or if it becomes, sort of addicting after that point. So I recommend it more as sort of an occasional, like if somebody's feeling really anxious, but not necessarily an everyday thing.
So I've tried melatonin a few times in my life, and every single time, Melissa, it does the opposite of what people tell me it's supposed to do. I don't know. It's so weird, but I get like super anxious. I don't sleep. I wake up feeling strung out. Like my sleep was so disrupted. And then I've always said like maybe it was something else, like maybe some other factor was involved. I'm going to try it again. I've only done it like maybe 5 times in the past 10 years or something like that. But every single time this happens to me.
Interesting. Yeah, it definitely doesn't work for everyone. And I haven't heard of that, but that does happen, that effect that you're getting too. And I just wonder, it's interesting to hear that because I just wonder, are you thinking about it? Do you think like, are you thinking about like, oh, when is this going to kick in? And is that causing you to feel anxious kind of by
I don't
default?
think so because, yeah, like I've kind of pieced it together after the fact, like, oh, wait, this happened the last time. So I don't think it's that. I think it's truly the melatonin, just my body doesn't like it or something. I don't know.
I know there's definitely a lot of nuances to the melatonin too, and even in terms of the dose, the timing of when you take it. Sometimes if you're taking it not at the ideal time where it's going to actually be the most effective, then like maybe you took it too early or too late, where because everyone's natural melatonin levels
Right.
are kind of vary throughout the day, and so maybe yours is a little bit different than maybe the timing of when would be best for somebody else. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
I just, whatever, I'm staying away from it. It clearly doesn't work. So my body doesn't need it.
Yeah, but no, magnesium though, I've seen a lot of my clients that seems to be a little bit more effective and potentially safer in the long term as well.
Okay. My husband actually started taking supplements, magnesium supplements before bed. And I have occasionally in the last few weeks, he'll ask me if I want some. And
Hmm.
I think it helps. But I was going to say the one thing that I've noticed in the past few months that has by far helped me more than anything in my life with sleep is meditating and finding time for quiet throughout the day just to like quiet my mind. I've been
Hmm.
teaching myself how to just quiet the thoughts and stop that incessant hamster wheel of thinking. And that I've been sleeping like a baby for like 2 months. It's been
Wow,
amazing.
that's great, and that's so
Oh,
natural. That's what you want.
yeah, exactly.
It sounds like you've been very dedicated to it though, which is really
Absolutely.
helpful.
Every day. So I won't let a day go by without training my brain a little bit. So
Yeah, that's
oh, I
great.
wake up, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so amazing. It used to be where like probably half of my days I would just be so exhausted and I just got used to that. I thought that was how it was going to be forever. And now it just feels like a dream.
Wow, that's great. Oh, that
Yeah.
can be so helpful. So that's
Yeah.
great to hear.
Yeah. Anything else on sleep?
I think that's it in terms of sleep. Yeah, I would say, like I said, just to, kind of sum up setting that consistent schedule and just, those stricter boundaries. It might be a process where, if you're used to going to bed late now, it's, just kind of slowly, working your way up to a little bit earlier and just being patient with yourself that, you don't have to be perfect, but doing the best you can to have that consistent schedule to really help you with your productivity in the morning as well. I think everyone's also, what I didn't mention is, we're all different in terms of when we're most productive too. So I think trying to, kind of work if at all possible, work your sleep schedule around that as well too. Maybe you're more of a night person or versus you're a morning person, then you want to get yourself to bed early enough so that you can capture that productivity in the morning.
Yeah. Love it all. So we'll move on to the last point, stress management. This is a big one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes. So I know that you had mentioned your meditation that you do. So that's definitely, of course, one way you can manage stress on a daily basis, but really just practicing daily self-care in any way that is most helpful for you would be my biggest piece of advice because we can't necessarily remove all the stress in our lives. We all have different levels of stress, sources of stress, but practicing that daily self-care, even if it's just for 5 to 10 minutes, is huge with your productivity. It's huge with kind of just starting your day off right so that you have more energy and you have more to give. So, as some examples of self-care, it can be a daily 10-minute practice, such as a gratitude practice, journaling, yoga, even talking to a friend. If you are a social person, is a lot of times it can be really helpful to manage stress by just venting to a friend or talking to somebody regularly to really help with, kind of normalizing any feelings that you're having and know that you're not alone. So there's a lot of different things that you can do, but know that it doesn't have to be something huge. It doesn't have to be you're taking an hour to get a massage or getting your nails done, for example. It's more, the daily things that add up more. So taking that 10 minutes to do something for yourself.
Do you feel like that's the biggest hang up for most people with self-care is just that they overthink how much of an investment it is. Or like you mentioned, getting a massage. I think people immediately go to, well, I don't want to get a massage every week. And that doesn't necessarily have to be what self-care means.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is definitely part of it. I think a lot of people may mistakenly feel that just doing these 10-minute self-care practices are not enough or not going to help. And so I think that a lot of people wait until they really get overwhelmed and really stressed, and then they schedule the massage and they schedule those things. And I've been guilty of that in the past as well, of doing that. But truly, those daily things, and I can honestly speak to this to myself and with my clients, that it is huge, that it doesn't have to be this big enormous feat. A lot of times getting the massage, yes, it's great in the moment and you feel great the rest of the day, but it doesn't necessarily translate for days on end. Kind of the next day you go back to your usual if you're not practicing that daily self-care. So
that's such a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a long-term fix. It feels like the day of, you're like, I feel amazing, but you need more of a sustainable way to manage your stress day to day.
Exactly. So those little things, like I mentioned, are really going to be more effective and so much easier to fit into your life. So whether it's first thing in the morning, I think that that's always ideal. But if you can't always get it in first thing in the morning, maybe you have little kids or maybe your sleep schedule is a little bit off, then, doing it as early in the day as possible whenever you feel like you need a break. And I know, Megan, I know you're huge on morning routines. So I think any sort of, way that you can incorporate even a 5-minute practice into morning routine as early as you can is going to set yourself up. Like something that I've been doing is, so I know you mentioned the meditation for yourself, but I've been doing a 5-minute gratitude practice. I don't even know if it takes 5 minutes. Honestly, it's probably like 3 minutes, but I just started. That was never usually something that I did on a regular basis. And I have to admit that I used to think, oh, I don't think this will do anything for me. And then I bought this gratitude journal on Amazon, and I just started doing it for like the past 3 or 4 months. And it's makes such a big difference in my mindset and just my energy throughout the day. So just as an example, but even if you're feeling like I felt, back, in the past, where you feel like you don't know if it's going to help you, just give it a try. And if it's, try it for a few weeks and it's not helping, then you can move on to something else that you feel like would be more effective for you.
Yeah, don't discount those little things that you think might be insignificant, because you never know. Like that 3-minute gratitude practice that you do impacts your day probably, right? Like so positively. 3 minutes of your time. We all have 3 minutes of time to spare. So why not try it?
Exactly. It makes a huge difference, and it's not a big time commitment at all.
Totally. All right. Anything else for stress management, Melissa?
No, I think that's it. I think it's just keeping it simple and just remembering that daily self-care is what's going to be the most effective.
Yeah. Wow, this was so great. Something we all need to hear. All of these messages, diet, exercise, sleep, stress management, they all add up to make us better humans, but also more capable entrepreneurs, more focused, more productive, more creative. We need all of that, right? If we want to keep going.
Exactly. If we want to keep growing your blog and being focused and keep going, it makes life so much easier, and it gives you that motivation to keep going.
Oh, so true. Thank you so much for delivering this message today. I feel like I saw your script come up and I was like, this is needed. Thank you, Melissa, for being here. This was so timely. So we really appreciate you. Do you have either a favorite quote or words of inspiration to end with today?
Yeah. So my words of wisdom, I would say, is what I had, just to kind of reiterate what I had said earlier, is that you will always get more time back when you take the time to care for yourself. So, even if you feel like you're taking time away, you will always get more done after in less time. So taking just that 5 minutes to do something good for yourself, whether that's eating a nourishing meal, going for a quick walk, or calling a friend, you will always have more energy, and it's not taking time away. It's giving it back to you.
Great message. Thank you so much. We'll put together a show notes page for you, Melissa. You can find those at eatblogtalk.com/Melissa Mitri, and that's spelled Mitri. Tell everyone where they can find you, Melissa.
Yeah, so I am active both on LinkedIn and Instagram. So on LinkedIn, I am the most active, and you can find me at Melissa Mitri, where I post health and wellness articles and videos daily. And then I'm also on Instagram at theweightloss.dietitian, and there I share sustainable weight loss tricks and tips.
Awesome. Yes, everyone go check all of that out. And thanks again, Melissa, for being here. And thank you for listening, food bloggers. I will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Eat Blog Talk. Please share this episode with a friend who would benefit from tuning in. I will see you next time.